trying to put the game away. He does! Down goes a defender. Solonier fires! Scores!
Hello and welcome. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by the Private Bank, the official bank of your Chicago Fire. We are here at the Heineken Pub 97, right here at the Private Bank Fire Pitch each and every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. You can catch us here. Come on out, be part of the studio audience. We have Frank Lopez, who joins us each and every week, and Paul Tenorio, he's busy, the U.S. men's national team, so we brought in a reserve. Mike McGee, former Chicago Fire player. Hey, thanks for filling in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. And, you know, Frank, the Chicago Fire lost their first game over the weekend. We're going to talk about that later. We may get to that. But there's other big news.
Bigger news to talk about.
There's other much bigger news this week as Bastian Schweinsteiger coming to the Chicago Fire.
Well, listen, I mean, great news, but obviously I got up Tuesday morning and I turned my cell phone and I see this message from a good friend of mine, Arne Friedrich from Germany. And I said, okay, this is great to hear from an old friend. And he said, my friend, you have a new German in town, with a big smile. And he said, great news, obviously, for the Fire, but also an excellent move for Bastian Schweinsteiger. So great start to the day.
Yeah, and Mike, as a guy who actually grew up in the city, what's that mean, having a guy like that come to the Chicago Fire?
Yeah, I didn't get a text from Arne. He must have lost my number, but it was awesome. You know, obviously Chicago Fire was the first team I was ever a fan of, so signing a guy as big and great as him is great. I'm a fan now, so it's awesome.
Yeah, you look at it and you bring in the most decorated player ever to join Major League Soccer, world-class player, a guy that's been renowned. He's had some illnesses in the past, but renowned for his fitness level. Things just weren't working out right now, and Man United wasn't able to get on the pitch, but great to have him joining the Fire.
No, I mean 100%, and I think every situation is a little bit different, but if you look at this guy's career and the commitment that he puts forth in every situation he's been to, and obviously it's a great opportunity for Chicago. It didn't work out there, but I know you're getting someone that, it's easy to talk about all the pedigree and what he's accomplished, but it's, from what Arne told me, he's a guy that's, not only quality, but a great guy and a great character, a great human being, and a very competitive guy every day. He's got a winning mentality that he brings every day to training.
Yeah, and we will also talk with Chicago Fire General Manager Nelson Rodriguez, who was a big part in putting this deal together. Talk with him in the third segment as the Chicago Fire have the bye week, basically the international break, as the U.S. men's national team plays this Friday. So Bastian Schweinsteiger to join the Chicago Fire, hopefully very, very soon. You know, when the international players come in, there's always visas and other things that need to be figured out. Hopefully that gets done quickly.
No, for sure. But the only good thing, I think, you're getting someone that's in training mode right now. Mm-hmm. It's not where, guys have been on vacation and then you need to bring them in. So I think it's a very good move also by Nelson Rodriguez to get someone at this time in. He's in training. He's even though he hasn't played games, but he's in training every day. So I think, that part of it, I think it's great. So yeah, I mean, obviously the logistics with the visa and all that, you never know how much time it's gonna take. But that standpoint, you're getting someone in that already has gone through a preseason, he's in training, and he's obviously he's ready to go.
Mike, you've been around the league, and a lot of times some of the big-name players from other places come in later in the season. What would this mean, you think, for the Fire when a guy comes in 4, 5, 6 games in instead of in the middle of the year?
The timing couldn't be better. So this team's obviously had a mixed start. I think there's some great pieces, and adding Juninho and Dax is huge, but bringing in a player like Bastian is a dream. He's a guy that can set the standard every single day of how things are supposed to be and how guys are supposed to train and compete and take care of their body, and the young guys will get to see it on a day in and day out basis, which is there's no amount of money you could spend to get that on a daily basis.
Well, and you think about it, we'll hear more of the story about how this whole thing happened, but the guy that's going to get the chance to coach Bastian Schweinsteiger, Veljko Paunovic, talked about the acquisition a little bit earlier.
Well, obviously, we are getting a world-class player still in his prime. We are very happy. We believe that he will help us achieve all our goals for this season, which the most important at this point for us is reaching the playoffs. We believe that he can play in different positions in the midfield, and obviously, good player always fits in every team. And he has, of course, behind him a huge experience, a lot of titles, and he's for sure the guy that can help us.
Veljko Paunovic, the head coach of the Chicago Fire, and Frank, you know this as a guy that not only played but also coached in this league. Anytime you get a world-class player added to your team, that's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Listen, I think it's a great thing, and I think every team and every player on every team understands and realizes in order for you to have success, you need to have special players on that team. That's a given. But I think it's also important when you do get special players and you bring someone like that they understand that there's no one, for me, two important things, that there's no one bigger than the team, and then also for him to understand that he needs the team just as much as the team needs him in order to be successful. If you can accomplish those things, I think it could be a great season.
Yeah, and you bring in guys, anytime you bring in good players, and Mike, you were around the league, anytime you bring in world-class guys, I mean, it just kind of seems like it ups everything with the team.
Yeah, like I said before, the example he's going to set on a day-in, day-out basis is going to be, it's going to be invaluable to not the young guys, the coaches, to anyone who is going to see him, which is the entire locker room.
Yeah.
So it's going to have a lasting impression and an incredible impact on the entire organization.
And not only the entire locker room, but also Chicago Fire fans. The next Chicago Fire game will be April 1st out at Toyota Park against Montreal, a 2 o'clock start. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com. It's the start of a 3-game homestand. Chicago Fire looking to build on their home win before that. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the newest acquisition of the Chicago Fire, Bastian Schweinsteiger, coming to Toyota Park. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Heineken tastes perfect every single time, and that doesn't happen by accident. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster, almost as long as it took me to master this look.
She came to meet a man. She found an angel. What's his name now?
Still practicing. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster. There's more behind the star.
Preparation is not optional.
Preparation is priority.
I prepare when no one is watching.
Preparation is part of me.
Advocare Rehydrate, redefining rehydration. Official sports drink of Major League Soccer.
John, you're home.
What's going on?
It's this paint, Valspar Reserve. Nothing stays on the wall. Not anything. Not any of these things, John.
Right, Valspar Reserve. Super stain resistant and scrubbable.
And this color, still perfect.
Yeah, looks great, Val. How much coffee have you had?
3 cups. 4.
Valspar Reserve Paint and Primer with hydrochroma technology. Now the colors you love stay the colors you love. Exclusively at Lowe's.
Welcome back, Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. We are here at the Heineken Pub 97. And don't forget, you're looking for a place to watch the U.S. men's national game this coming Friday night, a 9:30 kick as they take on Honduras. Come on over here. The TVs will be on. There'll be a lot of people cheering for the U.S. men's national team. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show, but we've got big news to talk about as Bastian Schweinsteiger is coming to the Chicago Fire as the Chicago Fire went out and made the acquisition. And, you know, in the offseason, Frank, a couple of midfielders coming in, Juninho, Dax McCarty, and now another midfielder in Bastian Schweinsteiger. And, of course, right away on Twitter, people said, hold it, you had 2 midfielders. How could those 2 play? Now there's 3. That's something Veljko will have to figure out, right?
Well, you try to put, I think, your best player centrally if you want, but I think this is a guy that's very versatile. I think throughout his career, whether he's played as a number 6 a little bit deeper in front of the center backs as a pivot guy that can organize the game from deep. He definitely had the energy. I mean, as a box-to-box midfielder, he can play on number 8. He can play on number 10 with two attacking, as an attacking midfielder. But I think for me, he's excellent tactical and technical abilities are great. That's just a couple things for me. Excellent visional play. Reads the game very well. I mean, the national team coach, Joachim Low, said that this guy was like the brain of the national team, you know? So, and then obviously he can create situations, numerical superiority with his team. Either great, you know, create off the dribble, but more importantly, just his visional play. He can see things, he can split the lines with one pass, all that stuff. I mean, a number 10 is not just a guy that gets the ball and beats 2-3 guys. You've seen, you know, Barcelona play a very similar style where you have maybe Busquets in a deeper role than they have Iniesta, they have Rakitic playing in the old days, Xavi, guys that can influence the game with their visional play and their decision making, and I think he's got both.
Mike, you're out in LA, you've played with guys like Beckham and Keane and things like that. What does it do when a guy like that, a world-renowned player, comes to a team like that? People say they can make the team better, and how does it make a team better when you bring a guy like that with the rest of the players?
Yeah, first and foremost, I don't care how many center midfielders I have. If you can sign Bastion, you're just signing them and then, you know, getting a good night's sleep. And then whenever he gets here, it's all going to make perfect sense. What he can do is everything for a club that's been struggling the last couple of years. He can come in here and literally do everything. And I know Nelson and Pano made it very clear to him about the struggles this club was having before he got here, and he's accepted the challenge, and he's gonna make it great, and he's gonna make some guys have to step up in a way they haven't.
I remember going back when you bring special players like that, because I had a conversation with Mike years ago when he was playing in LA and playing along a player like Robbie Keane, and I said, Mike, what can you pick up and learn from this guy? And then, you know, I remember right now, like in my mind, Mike telling me, he said, Frank, it's unbelievable to see this guy, even in training every day. It's like the moment he sniffs an opportunity to go to goal and score, boom, he's there. It's just every day in training, the guy like wants to score, wants to put himself in the right situation to score. And I think this is, talking to Mike, it's something that he said, man, I got to have this mentality and attitude every day. So it's, I think, a little things that even veteran guys, you know, can pick up, not only the young guys, you know, on any team.
You hear a lot about leadership, okay? Fans hear about leadership and how important leadership is. A guy comes in as a champion, a World Cup champion. He doesn't have to be a leadership role voice-wise. It's just basically what he does on the pitch and on the practice field, right?
Correct. I mean, I feel like my soccer training, looking back in my career, started the day I got to the Galaxy. The day I started watching Robbie Keane's movement off the ball, the way Landon defended, the way Beckham never took a day off no matter what, and it lasted with me. And all these things that I thought were the right way to do it, you realize you didn't know. And then when Beckham's not taking a day off, I can't take one off.
Right.
So these guys are going to get to see how he does things. And you don't get his resume and become the player he became on accident and by bad habits. So these guys are gonna take him in and learn from it, and you know, hopefully Matt Polster's the next Schweinsteiger.
Sure. I mean, and you
Why
see,
not?
and the nice thing is, and you know, we hear about it all the time. This guy's going to help everybody, make everybody better, and we talked about it a minute ago. And as a fan, and as people like media people say, well, how exactly does that happen? But you know, as I mentioned earlier, you're bringing a guy here that's you know, on the latest World Cup team, okay, and not just on the team, a key factor of the team. And you would think every player that's out there is going to step his game up. If they thought they were going 100%, or the things they can learn, now they say, well, look, I got a world-class guy out here. I have to step it up even more. And that's something I think all the fans are going to be looking forward to when they get out to Toyota Park to see this guy.
No, 100%. I think that from a player standpoint, Mike said it, I think they're going to be excited. They're going to be motivated, I think, to raise the level. But I think the expectations, look, this guy is a super player. It's a key signing, but it's just another piece in the puzzle. I think as a team, everyone has to do their part for the team, and if they do that, I think that's the key with any team. You know, I just think that you have some special players, but I think the important thing is that they all bring those qualities for the best interest of the team. You know, if that happens, I think there's some very good pieces, and it could be a very exciting year for the Fire.
Well, you talk about a guy coming here with challenges, and we'll talk more with Nelson Rodriguez in the next segment, but it's not like he's going to a team that's won a couple of MLS Cups lately. this is a team, as you mentioned, has struggled a little bit, and it's great to hear that a guy like Sebastian Schweinsteiger is going to come here and accept the challenge and try to make this team better.
He didn't come here to fail, right? He's never failed in his life. And the Manchester United thing, I wouldn't consider a failure because, like I said, he is going to win, and he's going to find a way to get other guys to win, and he does it every single day. So I'm expecting big things out of him, and I expect him to make everyone around him better, which he's done throughout his entire career.
When we come back, we'll have a chance to talk with Chicago Fire General Manager Nelson Rodriguez. He can explain to us how this whole thing happened, how they put it together, and we can't wait as the Chicago Fire take the week off with the national break. They'll be back in action as they take on Montreal coming up April 1st at 2 o'clock start. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
You have too many bills but not enough money? Would you like one lower payment for all debt, little or no money down? I'm attorney Peter Francis Geraci. Our Chapter 13 plans stop collections and creditors in one day for as low as $95 every 2 weeks. Get rid of bill collectors and high car payments. Get one lower payment today. Call or click now.
When you need to be debt-free, call 1-800-CALL-PFG. That's 1-800-CALL-PFG.
Go inside the lives of Chicago's biggest sports stars, only on Inside Look, presented by Cadillac. Your questions answered.
They got this big because basketball got this big.
Idols revisited.
They bring the atmosphere and the energy that you need throughout the grind of the season.
And the stories behind the headlines revealed.
It's a special journey and it's a great story.
Catch a new interview every month with Inside Look on CSN. Visit csnchicago.com for listings.
The Illinois Lottery presents a whole bunch of luck in 30 seconds. Here we go.
That's a long way.
Oh! She did it! Oh! Oh! Yeah! Woo! We won! Yes, we won! Oh, we won! We won!
Anything can happen in Game 7. Anything happens.
You have all this emotion built up in you from just dreaming as a kid.
You're up against this 108 years and up against this belief that something's going to go wrong.
I've learned that you don't ever count anybody out.
Nothing was supposed to come easily for the Cubs.
And certainly Game 7 was as dramatic as baseball can get.
Rain Men, the story of Game 7, premieres Monday at 9:30, only on CSN.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hubner along with Frank Lopez. Mike McGee sitting in for Paul Tenorio, who's out covering the U.S. men's national team game. And the man of the hour, nope, not Bastian Schweinsteiger. He's not here quite yet. But the next best thing, the man who brought him in, Chicago Fire General Manager Nelson Rodriguez. And Nelson, I know a lot of fans, not only Chicago Fire fans, but Major League Soccer fans are trying to figure out how'd this thing get done.
Well, it took quite a while, to be honest. We approached United late last summer in the early fall to see if Bastian might be in play and if we would be granted permission to speak with him and explore that opportunity. They did give us that opportunity. When we first approached his representation, the response was, hey, look, we're flattered, but Bastian wants to make a go of it here at United. He still has more he wants to prove. And so we patiently waited and checked in once a month. And then in December, things started to change a little bit. It went quiet again in January and picked up towards the end of January. And the more we were able to speak with Basti, the more he became enthused about the project and the challenge involved. And it all came together in early March.
Nelson, my question would be, obviously with every player you look on bringing on, there's pluses and obviously minuses. In this situation, there's so many pluses that you can check off. But what would be your concerns or things that would, unexpected things that you look into to make yourself feel comfortable in order to make this move?
Well, look, first, we can't deny he has not been a regular performer. And so there's always some uncertainty about that. But we spent a long time speaking to references, including people who had been his physical trainers and doctors in the past and looked at his medical records, and we were quite confident that he was healthy. And all the reports that we were getting from people around him was, this guy's training really hard. And when you did see him on the field, he was performing, he was producing, and it's Manchester United. You know, let's not forget, if he's a starter for United, he's probably not coming to MLS right now. And so there's a balance there. What we also try to do is prepare. And look, this is a big test for our club. We need to raise our game now. Here comes a world champion with world standards, and we all need to get better at what we do. But I'm confident that his character and his demeanor is going to even force me to be better at my job. And in the end, I think that elevates the club and pushes us forward at a time when we need to do that.
Did you compare that Munich and Chicago are very, very similar in you know, the cities and everything else? I mean, all the time he spent at Bayern Munich?
You know, he spent quite a bit of time learning about us. He asked about our ownership, Andrew Houtman. He asked about me. He was quite versed in Pano's playing career and what he did with Serbia. So he had done his work about us almost as much as the same we did about him.
Well, going back a little bit, you talked of this was a process, you know, the initial contact being made last year. Did that change your initial plan as far as the midfield, thinking, okay, if this doesn't happen, I know Dax, you talked about it, this was a decision made very early on.
Good question,
Dax
Frank.
Juninho, how did he fit in,
When
you know?
we first spoke to our ownership about our 3-year plan, we knew somewhere in there, if the opportunity came, not for namesake, but for soccer reasons, to inject a bigger player, a player with personality, a player with gravitas, a player that other teams have to account for, a player that referees have to account for. And we got that green light from our ownership, you know, and we're appreciative. This is not an insignificant investment. I think it's keeping with other investments that have been made for the club by ownership. But we looked at those things. But you've been in this situation, Frank, you carry simultaneous tracks on a lot of players. We looked at a different form of impact offensive player than Basti is. And some of those we lost out on. One we lost out on to China when he signed for $84 million. We're just not going to swim in those waters. There's no rational sense to that contract. But we feel really good about this.
So, what is his contract length? Is it 1+1?
It's 1 year. We have a mutual option. I think this speaks to his desire to prove himself, his desire to take on this challenge. Certainly, while it's a big investment for us, it's less money than he made at United, which speaks also to he's coming here to win. He's coming here to create a new chapter in his legacy as one of the great champions in soccer history.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the challenge, and I know I've read some things about this whole situation, and it seems like he's more than willing to accept the challenge and looking forward to it.
He is. You know, he referenced LeBron James. He was well versed that LeBron was with the Heat. They were winning, and he went to the Cavaliers at a time that they were down, but because he saw that LeBron wanted to restore his hometown franchise, and he'd like the same opportunity. And he likes what we pitched him. He believes in us, and we believe in him.
The big picture, like what kind, you know, the impact, not only on the field for when you bring someone like this in his career, big picture for the club, what kind of impact can this have in the future?
Look, if Bastian has a good experience, he automatically becomes a calling card for us. You mentioned Arne Friedrich in your opening. I know for certain that Arne spoke to Bastian, or Basti looked at him, and he said, look, Chicago's a great city, the club's a great club, and now we've just landed one of the world's biggest players. Down the road, other folks are now going to start to say, hey, he had a good experience, I want to look at Chicago. And that's a big difference. And, you know, if you take a peek at his old team in Munich, there are some pretty good players there that are still in their prime that come after 2018, they get their World Cup fill, we'll be waiting.
That's Nelson Rodriguez. We'll have more with him, the Chicago Fire general manager, we come back. Don't forget the Chicago Fire, after a weekend off, this weekend they're back at it. April 1st as they take on Montreal at Toyota Park. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com, at Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
blades of a combat chopper spin at 380 RPMs. Not even close to an Echo trimmer. Now that's shock and awe. Power on and on.
We don't give up. We don't quit. We keep going. Day in, day out. We fight on. Why? Because we are champions. Be a champion.
Don't let pain knock you out of the ring. Our hand, wrist, and elbow experts are pioneers worldwide. You need us in your corner. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today. After our minimally invasive spine surgery, 80% of golfers maintained or improved their handicap. Be treated by the pros to play more like a pro. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today.
What's more powerful than the winds of a Cat 5 hurricane? An Echo backpack blower. So, yeah, it'll clear a path. Power on and on.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hubner along with Mike McGee sitting in for Paul Tenorio this week, and Frank Klopas. We're joined by Chicago Fire General Manager Nelson Rodriguez. I know he was here a couple weeks ago, but he's been busy bringing over Bastian Schweinsteiger to the Chicago Fire. And before Frank and Mike get back to it, who let the players and the rest of the team know that Basti was coming?
The media, I think. We tried to keep a tight lid on it, but it got out that way. I've not addressed the team yet on it. Dax is away. We've had some injured guys. I'd like for the whole group to be together. I don't know that there's a lot that needs to be said. Mike has had the experience in these areas. I think Basti will speak for himself pretty well.
I'd like to know, the bar's obviously been raised pretty high for signings now. You get Bastian Schweinsteiger, now who's next? It's got to be, your next signing can't be the next Mike McGee. It's got to be somebody. It's got to be somebody big.
You had a great career for us and a great career for yourself, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
We all have our dream players for sure. I think the next big influx is going to come after Russia. I think there's a whole bucket of guys who are intrigued by MLS, want to play in MLS, want to help MLS grow, but are a little gun-shy, perhaps improperly so, but that's the mood that I get in speaking to some people. But I think, again, if Basti has a good experience, he's gonna help us.
Going back to Basti, Nelson, how do you think the pieces you put together, how can he help now make those guys around him better with the characteristics that he brings to the team? How can those guys benefit from him?
Well, look, if you just look at a player, say, like David Akam, or even Nemanja Nikolic, right? Nemanja is a box player who's reliant upon service to a large degree. David, if he gets isolated or he gets put into a good position, can do damage. We now have a guy who can deliver that ball in a lot of different ways, even being under pressure. So I think he can open up the game for David, as an example. I think he can find Nemanja in ways where Dax and Juninho can play those balls. I envision Boston playing a little higher up the field, and so closer to unlocking. Good on set pieces, good shooter from a distance, which forces the defense, I think, to play differently. And lastly, I think that he can be a player when we split lines who can receive it under pressure, still not give it away, give us a chance at more combination play closer to goal.
What does bringing a guy like Schweinsteiger do, not only for the Chicago Fire, but for the league? I know the first thing media people and everybody else do, they always look at the age 32, but it's not like he's a washed up 32 or 36 or 38. He's 32 and comes from Manchester United and Bayern Munich. What can that do for the league, bringing other players over? You mentioned, players possibly from South America or after Russia.
Look, I think Mike said it well earlier. I think it's a role model. I think it's not just younger players, but all players can learn and model themselves after a world champion. And, I hear the age thing all the time. Yeah. There's a guy, David Villa, who's done pretty well in the league. He turns 36 at the end of this year. So, he's played in his years 33 and 34, 34 and 35. He's done pretty darn well. So what we believe is that the time off is actually might prove to be more beneficial to Boston. He'd been running hot for 17, 18 years, and this gives his body and his mind a chance to be rejuvenated. I think the recognition is good, because the other part of it is, if, just for example, say more people in Germany watch MLS, they're going to see just how good Dax McCarty is, where they might not have otherwise. They're going to see a young player like Brandt Bronico and say, that guy's a rookie, that guy's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And that applies to all the players in the league. So that attention, I think, is a plus for everybody.
You said something about, I think, the next maybe, influence or players moving in after the World Cup into the next World Cup. Do you think that soccer question in general, not so much Fire related, but just league related, with China coming in and throwing crazy money like that, do you think that hurts the league with players of that caliber looking to come over or not?
Two things. In general, I think it hurts soccer because it's beyond reason. Mm-hmm. There's no sense to it at all. I actually think it helps MLS in a perverse way. And Boston is proof of this. The guys that are coming are probably coming for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. They're not coming for the moolah. They're coming for the challenge. They're coming to be pioneers. They're coming to lend their experience. They're coming to compete. They're coming to win. And again, whether it's the so-called younger guys like Lodero or Almiron, who are great players, but Villa came to compete. Gerrard came to compete. He was felled a little bit by injury, as was Lampard, but they wanted to perform. And I think in that regard, it's going to help. We're still going to get serious players who want a serious experience.
Now that you've done the hard work and you're bringing over Schweinsteiger and he'll be here, what are you looking forward to the most?
Actually, I think that might have been the easier part. Okay. I think the hard part is now. I think the hard part is continuing to move the club forward, continuing to raise the bar for ourselves. And ultimately, we need to win games. That's the only way we can validate any of our moves. It's the only way we can reward our fans, who I continue to say are incredibly supportive and fantastic. And that's what we have to do. And we have to challenge ourselves on a daily basis to get better.
He's Nelson Rodriguez, Chicago Fire general manager, the guy that brought Bastian Schweinsteiger over to the squad. The next game for the Chicago Fire coming up April 1st as Montreal is in town at 2 o'clock. Start at Toyota Park. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com. We come back, we're going to talk about the U.S. men's national team as they get ready for two very important games on Friday and Tuesday. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Success requires hard work. No way around it. Realize timing is key. Be willing to push yourself. Stay in control. Trust technology to support you. My father once said, "Doesn't matter what you do in life, just be the best at it."
Hi, Russ for U.S. Waterproofing. Looking for a company to repair your home can be stressful. Look to us, as many of your neighbors have, like Mrs. O'Brien in Elmhurst. We sealed cracks in her crawl space. Or Mr. Weber in Orland Park. We installed a battery backup sump pump. And Mr. Kaplan in Northbrook. He needed structural repair after he noticed cracks in his brickwork.
We've helped many of your neighbors. Schedule your free consultation today at uswaterproofing.com. US Waterproofing. A better basement starts with us.
Every time it's too nice out to be a work day, a Corona gets its lime. And every time you decide a Tuesday should feel like a Saturday, a Corona gets its lime. Every time you've got a view like that, or every time the best seat in the house isn't in the house. Every time the stars come out to play, or you dance the night away, a Corona gets its lime. And every time you put that away, a Corona gets its lime.
Dirty old furnace. Call Four Seasons.
Dirty furnace? Clean it up with a Four Seasons furnace tune-up. Lower utility bills, increase furnace lifespan, and guarantee a breakdown-free season for only $89.95.
For all the right reasons, call 866-4 Seasons.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. We've been talking a lot about the Chicago Fire, the new signing, Bastian Schweinsteiger coming over to the Fire. The Chicago Fire next on the pitch April 1st as they take on Montreal at Toyota Park, the first of 3 straight home games. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our later segments. But right now, Frank, first couple games for the U.S. men's national team, and the Hex not going very well, did not go very well. Losses to Mexico and Costa Rica. 2 huge games starting on Friday with Honduras.
No, 100%. And I think this becomes a must-win game for the U.S. now. And I think, you know, Bruce Arena, the coach, and I think no one knows him better than Mike, and I think he can share some inside info. I mean, obviously, going into this match and you go in as a coach and you have maybe a plan already in your mind of a starting lineup, but, you know, you have to be able to have plan B because, you know, some injuries, obviously the team, last-minute injuries to Yedlin, Fabian Johnson, you know, Bobby Wood, Eric Leahy was a guy that they were looking to bring in. That's not going to happen, but I think there's no better person because it's someone, Mike, that's been there before and someone that knows, obviously, the MLS extremely well and can bring players in. I think that will help the U.S. get the most, you know, the very important win here.
A coach coming in and in this scenario, and as bad as it's been for the first couple games, there's no better guy than Bruce. And they've obviously had a ton of injuries, and the entire soccer, the American soccer world cares. I think the only guy that doesn't care is Bruce. He's literally, he's next man up, and he just finds a way. And he can move guys around, and once he gets them in his locker room, he finds a way to get the best out of everyone. So if I had to guess, knowing Bruce, well, it's not a guess because I do know Bruce. Yeah, everyone will rise to the challenge, and it'll get guys to play better than they've ever played, and they're going to win for sure.
Did it surprise you not that Bruce took the job after having it in the past, after they decided to let go of Jurgen Klinsmann? But did it surprise you that they went back to him, or do you think it was the logical choice?
I thought it was a logical choice. He's, like I said, he's the best guy for the current situation. I mean, they need a result. They didn't like the way the program was going, and the things Bruce did when he was in charge, and he was incredible. I think it was the 2002 World Cup, which I feel like they were close to winning it, believe it or not. So it's perfect, and he's bringing in his guys, and he's going to twist things a little bit, but not too much to disrupt it, and he's going to turn it around.
When you say next man up, I know a lot. That's a big phrase. I use it a lot in the NFL. Guys get hurt all the time. Is that truly the way he is? He's got guys on his team, and you know there's not starters, there's reserves, but you're the next man up. Something happens, you just move in.
If you try making an excuse in his company about a field or a guy injured or any circumstance, you are going to get. You're not going to do it again. Okay. He's going to make sure that you never do it again because there is no excuse. Right. And if I had to bet, I'd say Honduras is probably missing a guy or two as well. He's perfect for the job right now, and I've never been more confident with this group than with him at the helm.
Yeah, and I think in Bruce's situation, because he's someone that's here and knows the league extremely well. You know, guys know that if you play well, that you're going to get rewarded. And, you know, you've seen early on that he brought into camp Birnbaum from D.C. He hasn't had a good start. D.C. hasn't either, but then he's been left out of this. Omar Gonzalez, a guy that Mike knows really well, maybe, he was a guy that, maybe was forgotten a little bit. Bruce comes in, he's doing really well, he's back in the team, and a possible start as a center back coming in. So I think there's an incentive, because I think the league becomes very important, and for guys really to do well, because if you do well with the guy that knows the league, probably no one knows it better than Bruce, that you are going to get rewarded.
And there's no better example than a good friend of mine, and obviously all of our good friend, Dax. He's a guy who fell out of the picture purely because Jurgen saw him as just your stereotypical American player. Didn't play in Europe, and he just wrote him off. Now, my conversations I've had with some guys on Bruce's staff is how high they are on Dax and what he brings to the team, and he's a winner and he's a fighter, and that's going to be contagious. Getting guys that want to be there, that want to fight, want to compete, and it's only going to make that culture better.
And you mentioned that, and there's a lot of MLS players on the squad, a ton of MLS players. And I know that in the past there's been factions of fans and the media people saying they need to get more of the guys. That's what Jurgen was doing. Jurgen was bringing over players from Germany and other places. Do you think the move with bringing in all the MLS players is a good move, and a move that obviously, like he said, nobody knows him better than Bruce?
No, I think, there's some injuries to the team. So, you have a pool of players, whether it's 30, 40 players that you feel very comfortable going in and bringing them in, and a lot depends on how you do in his games. And obviously, these guys have been watching the games. They brought a lot of guys in. Mike pointed out to one guy, Dax McCarty, but there's been Benny Feilhaber. There are guys, Sasha Kleshton, that have been out of the picture for a little bit. Omar Gonzalez, they're back in. These assistant coaches are looking at them at the games that they play, whether they're in this country in Major League Soccer or outside of the country. And I think when you do play well, it's good to be rewarded. And I feel very confident, because for me, when I look at the national team, it's a clear image of what the league is, the MLS. And I think if you look at the guys that possible starters, I think more than half could be from this league here.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the U.S. men's national team as they get ready for Friday night's game against Honduras. Then they play Panama on Tuesday. We'll take a look at those two games. And don't forget, if you want to take a look at those games and the game on Friday night, come on by here at the Heineken Pub 97. The games will be on. The U.S. men's national team fans will be here. Stop on by at the PrivateBank Fire Pitch. And don't forget, the Fire return to action April 1st. Montreal in town at Toyota Park. Chicago-fire.com for your tickets. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
What's more powerful than the winds of a Cat 5 hurricane? An Echo backpack blower. So, yeah, it'll clear a path. Power on and on.
John, you're home.
What's going on?
It's this paint, Valspar Reserve. Nothing stays on the wall. Not anything. Not any of these things, John.
Right, Valspar Reserve. Super stain resistant and scrubbable.
And this color, still perfect.
Yeah, looks great, Val. How much coffee have you had?
3 cups. 4.
Valspar Reserve Paint and Primer with Hydrochroma technology. Now the colors you love stay the colors you love. Exclusively at Lowe's.
Find a location near you at chicago-fire.com/youth.
NovaCare Rehabilitation knows the importance of an active lifestyle. If you're injured, we bring that back to you. NovaCare is the exclusive provider of physical therapy and athletic training services to the Chicago Fire Soccer Club. With 32 convenient Chicago area locations, NovaCare provides unmatched clinical expertise and customer service. For a center near you, or to request an appointment, visit novacare.com or call 800-770-6682. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
The blades of a combat chopper spin at 380 RPMs. Not even close to an Echo trimmer. Now that's shock and awe. power on and on.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. We're talking about the U.S. men's national team games coming up Friday in San Jose, and then a Panama game on Tuesday. Mike McGee sitting in for Paul Tenorio, who's actually with the U.S. men's national team. Paul will be back with us next Wednesday when we'll recap those two games. Frank Klopas and Frank, you look up top, and it's always, there's no such thing as moral victories, and people are excited, but it's really nice to see a guy like Clint Dempsey not only back in Major League Soccer, but also back in the men's national team.
100%. I think more important than anything is just his health. You know, he went through some difficult situation, and I think every soccer fan is just happy that, you know, more than anything, the guy's healthy, he's back playing, he's been playing well, and for him to be back with the national team, I think it's great, because for me in games like this, because this is a massive game, it's a must-win game, his experience is invaluable. A guy that in moments like this has been there, he's done it, he's a big-time player, and he's a big-time player, and you need big-time players in big games like this.
I'm sure that he hasn't been applauded a lot in San Jose when he plays, but getting on the pitch, if he gets on the pitch later on in the 70th minute, those fans, the U.S. men's national team fans at San Jose will really get behind him for this one.
Yeah, he's a guy that plays with a ton of emotion. I can't imagine any Earthquake fan, being a huge fan of his, but when they're playing for him in the country, he's certainly, playing with heart and passion and inspires his teammates. And when he puts on the U.S. jersey, he inspires the country. So it's a huge plus, and hopefully he plays more than just a sub role, but that'll be enough, I think.
We talked a lot about the MLS players that are on the U.S. men's national team, but you look at Honduras and at Panama, and when fans are watching these two, they're going to see a lot of players that they're familiar with if they watch Major League Soccer on weekends here.
100%. I mean, if you look at the Honduras team, I think there's 6-7 players that, they were playing in the league or at some point they've been in the league here. So, I think that helps them in a way, because you have players now that are playing in a better league. They're playing in better games. There's a familiarity. If it's not the first time I'm going to play against Altidore or Morris or Dempsey. So I think it becomes a little bit more difficult, because of just their ability to be in a better environment and to have a chance to have seen those players and play against them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You look at it, there's the guys that you see each and every Saturday on the weekend playing in Major League Soccer. You'll see them playing. You talked about 3 points being super important, and obviously you go to Panama Tuesday, but after the performances in the first two games, 3 points is a must on Friday.
That's all behind. I think, no, it is. I think because, I think the most important thing is, the game against Honduras now. And then, listen, anything can happen. We can get struck by lightning here. I just don't see how, the U.S. doesn't get the 3 points. I think I'll go on the record and say that, or the U.S., has a chance of missing out on the World Cup. For me, have a better chance of winning the Powerball in the big game than them missing out. That's my prediction.
I mean, you look at some of the things going on with the U.S. men's national team, and the nice thing about this is not only Chicago fans talking about the Fire or elsewhere, but U.S. men's national team, everyone's got an opinion. When you look at the U.S. men's national team, what are the parts that you think need work? The parts that need to step up? For a long time was the back line. Then it was not getting enough goal scoring. Then it was, where's Michael Bradley play? When you watch the games, what are you thinking?
Well, I think the fans' biggest issue was how guys played when they put the shirt on. I think a lot of people have been vocal about foreign players, and I don't think that's the problem, or guys that were playing in Germany or from there. It was just a culture where guys didn't seem to play at their absolute best every time they put on the jersey. I think that's going to change now, and I think Bruce is going to get that out of the guys. And I think come Friday night when the game ends, I think all these problems with the team and the negative air, I think it's all going to have gone away.
Yeah, I mean, is there one area, back line, anything that needs to improve more? So, I mean, obviously they lose the first two games, so that everything needs to improve. But is there one thing that needs to improve when you see it Friday?
Fred, every game is different. I think there's enough quality of players there, and you can't just look at one game, because you look at the team and some of the games that they've played, and they've looked fantastic. This is all a process, and I agree with Mike. I think that sometimes, a change is necessary. You make this change. I think everybody's going to be excited now. You have Bruce. I think that there's a lot of familiarity there, and I do agree with him that he will get the most out of the players. But, the U.S. team has a lot of quality there on the field that, if they come out and they have the mentality and attitude like Mike said, I don't see them having a problem with the 3 points.
Before we take a break, one last guy that we haven't talked about, and your thoughts on watching Christian Pulisic play.
This kid's a freak. It's hard to believe how much confidence he has in going at guys and in the league he's in. And then I had no idea he was 18 until maybe 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary how bright his future can be. And I'm obviously a huge fan of Landon, who I think is the greatest American player of all time. But where this kid's at right now, it's tough to not imagine him being one of the best American players ever, if not the best.
But the one thing I would say is, like, to get the most out of the players also, I think it's important to have that competition, because if you have bad games and you don't play well, that that you might lose your spot. There's no guarantees there. Right. And I think Bruce has shown that early on. So I think that's also a very good point to make with a lot of the players. They can't be a comfort level, and I think that competition is there. The quality of players is a lot different now than, I think when I was playing with the national team. So I think that you need to play well. You need to play well in your games here when you're representing your teams in the league. I think that's important and that counts, and there's someone there that's watching that and making the right decisions.
That was the Valspar Primer, taking a look at the U.S. men's national team games. Valspar, the official paint of your Chicago Fire. We come back, we'll take a look at some of the happenings around Major League Soccer. It's a international week off for the Chicago Fire. They return back to action April 1st at Toyota Park with Montreal in town. Get your tickets at chicago-fire.com. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Hey, bud, you need some help?
No, I'm good. Come on, Mom. I have to go.
We always trusted our Subaru Impreza would be there for him someday.
Hey, that's it.
But we just didn't think someday would come so fast.
See you later, Mo.
Introducing the all-new Subaru Impreza, the longest-lasting vehicle in its class. More than a car, it's a Subaru.
Hi, Russ for U.S. Waterproofing. Looking for a company to repair your home can be stressful. Look to us, as many of your neighbors have, like Mrs. O'Brien in Elmhurst. We sealed cracks in her crawl space. Or Mr. Weber in Orland Park. We installed a battery backup sump pump. And Mr. Kaplan in Northbrook. He needed structural repair after he noticed cracks in his brickwork.
We've helped many of your neighbors. Schedule your free consultation today at uswaterproofing.com. U.S. Waterproofing. A better basement starts with us.
Chapter 13 debt repayment plans can deal with lawsuits, foreclosures, car payments, credit cards, payday loans, repossessions, tax debts, medical bills, and more. I'm attorney Peter Francis Geraci. Get one lower payment for all debt and stop creditors now. We're the law firm you trust to get you out of debt.
When you need to be debt-free, call 1-800-CALL-PFG. That's 1-800-CALL-PFG.
Before each week's NASCAR race, enter the Chicagoland Speedway sweepstakes at csnchicago.com/speedway and tell us who you think will win that weekend's race. Then be sure to tune in every Tuesday to CSN as the president of Chicagoland Speedway, Scott Paddock, joins Dave Kaplan on Sports Talk Live. If he randomly selects your entry, you'll win tickets to the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup race on September 20th in Joliet. Plus, you'll be entered to win the grand prize, a trip for two to the 2017 NASCAR Awards ceremony in Las Vegas.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. We're live at the Heineken Pub 97. Come on by. Each and every Wednesday we're here at 6 o'clock, or you can come by this Friday and catch the U.S. men's national team as they take on Honduras. The kick around 9:50. Stop on by. A lot of U.S. men's national team fans will be here enjoying their Heineken and pulling for the U.S. men's national team. Fire Field Vision powered by NovaCare. And Frank, over the weekend, Fire went down to Atlanta. Only 45,000. They got a big slump in fans down in Atlanta. 55,000 the opener, 45,000 the other day. The Fire suffered their first loss, and it was a rough one right off the bat. Bad things happen early.
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult start, and we talked about it before, the importance of how Atlanta was going to come out and have that good start, and obviously that didn't, and things got worse with the red card. So I think games like that, I think it's important to try to move on, but also to evaluate because that's also your last point of reference to see certain things that in this break you're able to work on and move on.
This guy Martinez is pretty good. That last goal, I don't know how he got it in from that angle.
Yeah, his movement is good. His movement, that front group that they have with Martinez, Saad, and Alalba, and Almiron, their movement, and if you don't make it extremely difficult for them, I think that they're going to cause a lot of headaches for a lot of teams.
Yeah, there's other action going on around Major League Soccer. Portland, another team who's off to a really nice start, scoring goals. Had a big game this past weekend against Houston, and Portland comes out on top.
They've, for me, out west, I mean, at least for the Western Conference, I think for me, and overall, when I look at the league, they seem to be on top form right off the start. The game with Houston, I think that it was a Houston much improved team. They kept it close, but what a difficult place it is to go there, Mike. I know you played many times with the atmosphere and the quality of players that they have, and it was a great game to watch, and they have so much quality going forward. And yeah, early on in the season, I think at least from the Western Conference, Dallas, I think they're a little bit ahead of everyone else.
Mike, have you ever? You had to be in grade school when DeMarcus Beasley started. He's still playing the left back position for Houston. How amazing is this guy?
I can't say enough about DeMarcus. I was in the residency program. He was the group before me.
Okay.
Watching him throughout his career and just how incredibly consistent he is, which is the most important thing for, well, I guess all athletes, but as a defender, you have to be able to defend for 90 minutes, and he's done it not only for 90 minutes, but for 16 years. I don't know. I'm probably off by a couple years, but it's remarkable.
Ageless wonder. The guy's like 80 pounds, I think he weighs. He never gets tired. It's almost like he's flying. You don't even see him touching the ground. It's been great to see. The guy just keeps getting better and better and better and better, and it seems like there's no end point to his career. It's great to see, and maybe we'll see him back, out on the pitch with the national team. So it's great to see.
Another team playing well off the early start is Seattle Sounders. They get Dempsey back, but they played well. They had a game against the Red Bulls this past weekend, and they ended up with a win.
No, for sure. I think that's a team, especially when they're playing at home with the atmosphere and the quality that they have. It's always going to be a difficult place to play. So it's early, Fred. In 3 games, it's a lot to play for. So early in the season, there's a lot of positives from a lot of teams, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We get to see Clint Dempsey scoring a goal from the spot. And the Chicago Fire, they have the weekend off. They get a chance to get ready for their next game, April 1st, as Montreal comes to town, as the Impact come a 2 o'clock start on April 1st. Quickly, like 10 seconds, things that Chicago Fire need to do better in their next game.
Well, listen, I think 10 seconds, my God, that's a tough one. I think better in transition. I think we talked about the way Atlanta was pressing when they got the ball. I think the movement has to be better, and then the first ball out of pressure has to be better. And I think defensively, I think they got a little bit stretched out in that game, and it made it more difficult being a man down over 70, 80 minutes, so that didn't help. But little things, but they have enough time over here this break to work on those things.
Mike, we appreciate you jumping on in, filling in for Paul Tenorio. You came in off the bench. That was nice. Last minute sub. We appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot for tuning in. Don't forget, Chicago Fire back in action April 1st, 2 o'clock start at Toyota Park against Montreal. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank, every Wednesday right here on CSN Plus.